Welcome to Make Pods Great Again. I'm your host, John, back again for the final coverage of the 2020 CrossFit Games, or at least the first part of it, with my newest bestie, Steph. Steph, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm gonna be lost without this podcast, man.
I know, it's like every day for you,
It
right?
has been.
It's like a new lifestyle.
Podcasting is a lifestyle.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's a lifestyle any of us need. Um, so what'd you think of the games today?
It was an exciting day, I have to say. It was there was a lot of movement on the leaderboard. Um, it did it felt like a day two or day three of regionals. I'm not gonna lie. Like there were surprises in there. There were people who did, better than expected. There were people who did not as well as expected. And the movement and the shifts on the leaderboard were kind of cool to see, especially after when they announced 5 and 6 together. And then, the suspense, there was only one event left. So we knew that there was only going to be one event to shift everything. Um, and I like seeing it. It was nice to see people move around, and it means that the programming was really good for day two because no one was safe after the first four events.
Yeah, it's funny that you say it reminded you of regionals because I thought the exact same thing when they were announcing the winners, and it
Yeah.
occurred to me when they were only announcing five that somebody was going to be left on the outside, and it just felt so different than being at the games where you're trying to get on a podium. This is really a qualifier. I mean, it didn't feel like the CrossFit Games; it felt like a qualifier to the CrossFit Games, which
Mm.
technically I guess is what it is. Um, it just felt different to me. It was good. It wasn't a bad different. It just felt wildly different. And to your point, there was a lot of movement and a lot of surprises. I think a lot of people came away from this weekend like, okay, so some people are way better than we thought they were, and others, names that maybe aren't as popular as some of the others, jumped up and made a real name for themselves. So it was a fun couple of days.
Very. I mean, I do want to stress though, this was a realization that I came to as they were announcing the five. It did feel like this was a qualifier to what was the quote unquote real games. But this was the CrossFit Games. So, you're looking at sixth, seventh, eighth place. Those unfortunately are the devastating spots that were so close to actually getting to go to the ranch. But that's, top 10 at the CrossFit Games. That goes on their record. And I think they were speaking about Yana Koske saying that this was his highest finish at the games, even though he was, outside the top five. So that's a huge accomplishment. And I think it's something that we need to realize is that this wasn't just a qualifier. This is the CrossFit Games, and all these athletes are amazing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I was speaking more toward the feeling of it. Just felt like a
Yeah.
qualifier, but when you look at the quality of the athletes that are competing, and I was, I guess both sides. I was surprised just where some of the athletes landed, but I was looking at some of my very favorite athletes that landed 2 or 3 points out from qualifying, and it's just as a fan that's heartbreaking. But to your point, you're still sixth or seventh in the world. Like, it's a really amazing accomplishment when you really break it down to the number of people that compete all the way from the open through sanctionals, into this level. So really, really
Another
cool stuff.
thing, exactly. Another thing we have to point out is this season has been so weird and so long. You're thinking of what's it, September 19th. The Open was 11 months ago, started 11 months ago. That is an exceptionally long season. And we had our first sanctional, Filthy 150 was the first, was the end of November. So it's been a long run for people. Most of these athletes competed in the Open and qualified through the Open. Most of the other athletes qualified in the beginning of this, all the sanctionals in the beginning of the season. So it's been a long time coming in. Even though it's an advantage to have extra time to prep for the games, it's also been really hard because the date's been moved out. I'm sure training has kind of gone up and gone down as we knew different things about COVID. So staying healthy and staying kind of mentally intact through all of this is definitely a huge factor.
Yeah, it's Nikki was interviewing Matt in the post game, and the closest he'll ever be to coming on the show, I think. But but regardless, he said to her, he goes, "I haven't competed since January," and like it occurred to me, I'm like, "Holy crap!" Like,
Yeah.
here we are all the way into October, and you know, and he just, or, almost, and he hasn't competed since then. It's like, it's absolutely ridiculous,
Yeah.
so just such a different world right now. Well, let's talk about some of the events or the finishes. So on the women's side, some that were no surprise, others that were a little bit of a surprise. Just like, let me give the top five, and then I'll ask you a couple questions. So Tia Claire Toomey, number one. I think that's no
No
shock for
surprise there.
anyone. Yeah, amazing, as always, and really a dominant performance. Brooke Wells second, Haley Adams third, Katrin Davidsdottir fourth, and Carrie Pierce fifth. And then kind of on the outside looking in, so I don't think we should not mention them, is Kristen Holta, Kara Saunders, Amanda Barnhart, and Christy Aramo O'Connell at 6, 7, 8, and 9. So looking on the women's side, like what was probably your biggest surprise of that group?
Haley Adams, and I hate that she surprised me, because she is someone that should never be underestimated. Like, we can't count her out ever. But I kind of did with the two barbells,
Right.
the front squat and the cleans.
Yeah.
I thought those would be detrimental enough to her to keep her out of the top five. But this just proves, you can't count her out of anything. Looking at her finishes, the 1RM front squat she placed 26th. So that was by far her worst finish. But everything else is top 10, top six. She tied for six on the 1,000-meter row, and everything else was top five. So that's a really impressive performance to me. And I have to eat my words, like, I wasn't predicting that she was going to make the top five simply because of those lifts once I knew the programming, and she's done it.
So I didn't have her in my top five. I had her on the bubble when Nikki and I discussed it. The only reason I didn't is that when we interviewed her, she didn't think she was going to make it. Like, she said to us, online competing isn't my jam. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So yeah, I'm thinking, all right, you're the competitor. If you don't think you can, you probably won't.
Mm.
She was probably just leading me on, trying to be humble, because she had an amazing weekend. And really, if you take out that 26 finish, which is worth 13 points, if you just eliminate that event as an example, and you take the 100 points away from Tia and you take the 13 away from Haley, the difference between them is less than 40 points over the course of the entire week, just, based on her, performances everywhere else, the fifth, the 12th, the sixth, the fourth, like, really outstanding weekend for her. And she's 19. I can't believe it.
It's it's crazy. It's crazy. She's very fit. Every year she surprises me, um, in a good way. I think her potential is huge. And I mean, just looking at the final point standings, if 26th was good enough for 13 points, if you just take away those 13 points, she's still in fourth.
Yep.
So she could have placed last on the front squat, and still been in that top five, which is great.
Yeah.
And I mean, Katrin is another person who should never surprise me, but she won two of the events today, which was a huge way to come back after yesterday. She wasn't where she wanted to sit at the end of Friday, and she came out with two event wins in the first block today. That's insane.
Yeah, really, really stellar for her. I mean, she dug herself out of a big hole. She was, back there pretty well, and then just shot up the leaderboard right there at the end. I was really impressed with Brooke Wells. I mean, I don't know Brooke even a little. I've literally never talked to her. And so I haven't really followed her that much, other than, kind of through the exploits of Alec and some of her friends. And talk about a consistent weekend, man. Like,
Yeah.
third, fifth, eighth. She had another third, like, just kind of
Yeah.
right. Only had one. She had 1/10 place finish, and it was in the squat, and she's kind of known for her strength. So, I mean, really outstanding. And she was within, she was within 31 points of Tia.
I was actually going to mention that Brooke, when I was coming into CrossFit anyways, and again, I don't know her personally, but she was known, or I knew her as a strong athlete. She was the one who's going to win a 1RM event. She was going to win any kind of speed ladder. She was just so strong. And I think she's, at least from the outside looking in, it looks like she's done kind of a rebuild the past couple of years and taking back that strength and getting her conditioning up. And has clearly paid off because, she was 10th in that front squat event. That was actually her lowest finish. And you look at the other finishes: third in Friendly Fran, third in Damn Diane, fifth in Nasty Nancy. Those are, that's a range of time domains. And then she was third in Awful Annie. So that's taking, a third in a 2.5-minute event, which was Diane, a third in a 4.5-minute event, Friendly Fran. She took fifth in Nasty Nancy, which was 19:21. So that's the longest one. And then third in the 9 minutes 10 Awful Annie. So that to me shows that all levels, all areas of her conditioning are really dialed in. And, she's placing high in all of those domains, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's really insane. I was excited to see Carrie Pierce get in. I mean,
Oh, me too.
again, I've got so many favorites here that I, kind of feel bad that she knocked some of my favorites out, but I love Carrie. She's such an incredible person. And I think I said this before. She doesn't know how to lose. Like, she has no idea how to lose. Like, whenever there's a competition, you can just almost just write her name in top 5 or, or right in the top of the pack every time. And she was another one. She had a couple of events that didn't go her way, but then, just kind of stormed back with her really normal, consistent performance with a 4th, an 8th, an 8th, the 2nd, like just right in there. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. She is really incredible. And I mean, the one thing is, you said she knocked some of your other favorites out of the top 5. She was one of my favorites to be in the top 5, just because she's an incredible human. She's so sweet, so nice, so down to earth. But she's super competitive. She knew what she had to do, and she came into today and really, really did it. And I'm happy for her. She works really hard. But this whole field, it's so hard to pick 5. I didn't even make a top 5, because you look and there were at least 10 girls that I just threw my hands up and was like, any one of them could be in the top 5. This field is just so stacked, and it's just a testament to how competitive that top 5 really is.
Well, yeah, and 6, 7, and 8. So Kristen Holta was 2 points back, Kara Saunders 3 points back, and Amanda Barnhart 5 points back. Like,
Yeah.
that, you think of how few those points are. That's, a couple of seconds extra on a handstand hold, as an example, would have gotten it for any of them. For that, I mean, you had Kara Sanders was 22nd in the handstand hold. Amanda was 13th, right? So, I mean, probably do the math here real quick as I'm looking at it, but the difference between 22nd and 14th was 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So that's your difference between going and not going. I'm not saying that to make her feel bad. Not that she'll listen to this, but I mean, I think that's the point. Is, they're all so incredibly talented, in the women's division is so stacked. Only there were a couple I was surprised by. I thought Sarah did not have the weekend I thought she would. Same for Bethany Shadburn. Both, just not where I expected them. I was sad to see, Danny Spiegel was doing great, right up until Nasty Nancy. And then that thing dropped her back down the leaderboard. Otherwise she would have had she was really kind of one event away from being in that, arguably in that top 6 or 7, to have a shot at the top 5. So definitely some surprises there. Anyone else you were surprised by, or just had a different weekend than you thought they would have?
No, I mean, I think we've mentioned all of them. One thing about Kara, that I think is really impressive is that even though she was 3 points back from making it to Aromas, she had a baby less than a year ago or a year ago. I don't know the exact timeline, but she just placed 7th at the CrossFit Games.
Yep.
A year after having a child. I have trained some women during pregnancy and postpartum, and it doesn't come back that fast for most people. She must have worked so incredibly hard to get back to where she was, even close to where she was pre-pregnancy. So I think that's huge. And even though I'm sure that's no condolence to her, she's probably kicking herself for missing by a few points. I think that is something we all need to recognize.
Oh, for sure. And I'd be shocked if she wasn't, back in the conversation next season, and even a little more shocked if she wasn't on the podium. I mean, her performances were outstanding. Like the fact that you missed by a couple of points is, just a testament to how great the others are. She had a second, a third, a
Yeah.
first. I mean, man,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
amazing.
She's in
Really
it. I think
amazing.
she'll be in the conversation for as long as she's on the competition floor. Otherwise, I think the field is really, really competitive, and but I do think that it's going to be very interesting to watch everything happen at the ranch in a couple weeks, based on who's here, who's in this top 5.
I hope at the ranch they just take Polaroids and just show us photos. So to be really kind of top off the coverage this weekend, it would be great. Um, Nikki was
Well,
awesome. Nikki was awesome. I'll say that.
yes, her interviews were so good. And I mean, there's one thing I think that, it's going to be a live event. I think we can count on some live coverage for
I
that.
think
So we'll actually get to see them work out next to each other.
it's not one of those air quotes live. This is a live event. We'll see. Well, they
Remains
said
to be seen.
they said CBS is going to be there, and so I got to believe CBS is going to dial this in. We'll see. You gave me something to bitch
That
about all weekend. I love things to complain about, so that was fun. All right, let's talk about the men. There's a little guy named Matt Frazier. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he had a pretty good weekend.
he did have a pretty good weekend. And I
Man,
think that's all we need to say about that.
he is so
No, I mean,
dominant, like
yeah,
incredibly dominant. First, second. Let me tell you, so I'm gonna catch some shit. So I didn't have him in my top 5. I hadn't seen him compete all year. So, shame on me. But let me tell you where he impressed me most. 8th in the 1,000-meter row and second in the handstand hold. I mean, this is a guy known for his Olympic lifting, and he takes second in the handstand hold. Like,
yeah.
come on, be bad at something, bro. Like anything, just pick something and be bad at it. Make me feel good about myself. But no, he's got to damn near win everything. It's ridiculous.
It's one of those things that I guess people ask me why I've had faith in Matt and Tia. Even like you said, there's an entire season where we basically didn't see anyone compete. We haven't seen anyone compete since January, February. But to compete at such an elite level, to be so good at what you do, you have to pay attention to the tiniest details. It's the margins, it's the fractions, it's the tiny things that make the most difference. So even though Matt is known for his weightlifting, his Olympic lifting, it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that he's good at handstand holding, because that is something that takes a lot of attention to detail. Like we talked about earlier this weekend, it takes technical
Yeah.
perfection to hold that long. It doesn't surprise me that even if he hasn't practiced them, that when this workout was announced, he went and practiced and figured out exactly how to do it right, how to hold for the longest, and just really paid attention to his body awareness, body position throughout the entire thing. So I think that's, what separates good athletes from great ones is the ability to hone in on the details and apply it when it matters. So yeah, I mean, I'd like to say that it was surprising to me, but I don't think it was super surprising. A second is impressive though.
Are you about to get arrested? Sounds like the cops are about to kick your door in there.
My neighborhood
Yeah.
gets really feisty on Saturday nights, and this is just the reality of the situation.
Well, I think we talked about this maybe on the live stream last night. So I was a little amused looking at this handstand hold. So Matt finished second at a minute 35. Noah won that event at a minute 37. The men can't hold a candle to the women when it comes to handstand holds, man. Like not even
Yeah,
close. The winning woman
it was
was
Katrin,
yeah,
about 2 minutes.
254, so twice
Yeah.
as long. That's awesome.
And like I way over predicted that handstand hold. When someone asked me how long do I think they'll hold for, I was like 4 or 5 minutes. I think this is, and I'll go back and do this myself and be like, yeah, 4 or 5 minutes is literally insane. You upside down is just, who knows? I watched them replay the men, the bubble men, the four side by side, and like everyone looks really solid for about 30 seconds, and then there's just like chaos and movement
Right.
everywhere. So yeah, I was totally wrong about how long would win. Katrin was the closest at just under 3 minutes, and then most of the guys I think fall under 90 seconds.
See, I thought they'd all be 3 or 4. I didn't think you were out of bounds by saying that. Like when we were talking about it last night, I said when I do handstand holds, I can hold for a full minute against a wall. Now that's a scale, right? And I'm old AF, so I figure if my old butt can flip over on a wall with my feet on it and hold it for a minute, these most elite athletes on the planet can hold it for 3 minutes or so, But
Well, and I
man,
mean, yeah, I guess if they were fresh, I totally believe that they could all hold it for 3-4 minutes. But the fatigue must have been significant, especially from all the overhead work earlier. That bar, I saw the replay of a lot of people moving that barbell. Looked heavy.
yeah, well, yeah, I'm sure Nasty Nancy certainly did not help the cause. Well, the other men, so Noah Olson back in his second spot, which is great. Justin Medeiros in third. What did you think about Justin, the mullet?
Oh, this is so exciting. He's so nice. I know very little about him personally. We were at Filthy 150 together, but I was kind of dialed into competition, so I didn't get to meet him. But I know his coach pretty well, Adam Neiffer. We've been working on the PFA together. He's on the executive board as well. Has some competitive team experience. So I was really rooting for him. He's a rookie. He's super young. I think he's the youngest in the field. And watching his post games interview with Nikki, he's just really humble, really nice. He looks like he works really hard, and it's exciting. He had mentioned that after he won the Filthy 150, he didn't just come out and like win it because the first two places on the podium had qualified through the Open. Like he won the thing.
Right.
And he said that he wanted to come out and prove that he deserved to be on the stage with those other guys. And I think that he did. He beat out a lot of CrossFit Games veterans, and he had really great performances over the whole weekend.
Yeah, across the board. And he was only 8 points behind Noah, which was really impressive. He's only 21. I mean,
Yeah.
he's just a baby. He's like Haley Adams with a mullet, he's just this young kid. I remember when he won that because I thought the same thing when he won it. I'm like, I didn't know him then, and but looking at his performance over the weekend, second in Nasty Nancy, fourth on Awful Annie. That's for me, that's what's most impressive. He had a really heavy front squat, so 437 pounds, which, so he's young and strong, but he only weighs 190. This isn't like
Yeah.
he's, some, big monster guy. Like that's not that heavy. For me, the most impressive thing though, those two late, we'll just call them wins, after all this work, like being able to show that level of endurance through 7 events is
Yeah.
really, really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. He was in the top 5 after the first 2 events, and he basically didn't let go.
Yeah.
It's really impressive for a rookie, and he has experience. He's been to regionals several years. I don't remember his exact competition history, but I remember talking to Adam about it. And he's not just a flash in the pan. He didn't just show up on the scene. He's been doing this for a couple of years, but makes me even more excited to see his breakout year go so successfully because he's been working hard clearly for a long time at this.
Yeah, and I'm not even making a prediction that he's going to go to Aromas and beat Matt, but if I were Matt, that's the kid I'd be worried about. The one that doesn't have a lot of games experience. It's the people that like don't know what they're scared of that are dangerous, that are really dangerous.
Yeah.
Can just go in and have the weekend of his life and blow it open. So good for him.
Yeah.
Like really
Yeah.
excited for him. Samuel Quant, 4th place. Really good performances by him. Had you any thoughts on Sam?
I don't know him, sadly. I don't know anything about him really, or Jeffrey Adler. I've met Adler once, but I can't say I've met Samuel Quant, so I can't speak to them. But looking at their standings and where they place in the events, Samuel Quant's clearly very strong. Front
Yeah.
413.
Yeah, and again, young kid, 20. I mean, I know everybody's young to me, but he's 24. he's basically a foot too tall for CrossFit. He's 5'11", so good for him. But yeah, really solid performance by him all weekend long. I mean, again, a couple of third performances. I don't think anybody saw him coming. Jeff Adler, I'm going to go on record. I called him. I had him in my top 5, and he made top 5. So Jeff, thank you for not making
Really?
me look like a damn fool. Yeah, like he always does really well in online events. During the Open, he's done really well, a couple of times. And, he's like the others. He's younger. He's 26. And he's always put up good numbers. And he had a very consistent weekend. He had, looks like he had one bad event, which was the handstand hold. He got it for a full 36 seconds. I don't know, I'm making fun of him a little bit there, but that's still probably 34 seconds longer than I could. So good for him. But other than that one thing, you take out that handstand hold,
Super
and
consistent.
yeah, he had, I mean, everything was top 10. Basically, he had 111th to 115th, but like he's right in contention the whole way. And
Yeah.
to your point, beat out, Koski, Vellner, BK, Hepner, Krinikov, Paulson, Fakowski. Like you just go down the list, Cole Sager, like all these veterans that have been there before, and he went in and acted like the veteran himself.
Yeah, the people chasing him, the list is significant. And he was 2 points ahead of Chandler Smith, who made a pretty big charge, I think, in the last event.
Yep.
It's, like I was really rooting for Chandler just on a personal note, to make it such a sweet guy. But, again, a 6th at the CrossFit Games. That's incredible. Like I said, under him, Yona, 7th. That's his best games finish. So definitely, I'm sure they're heartbroken now that they're not going to get to compete at the ranch. But overall, a really solid top 10, in my opinion.
Yeah, I
Looking
was
down.
bummed that Chandler didn't make it. I'm sure he's obviously more bummed, but especially about 2 points. Like he is literally the sweetest man I've ever met, ever.
Yeah.
Like he actually chased me down at the CrossFit Games. I was in the beer tent. Shocking, I know. And I'm standing in line, and he like taps me on the shoulder. I turn around. I'm like, "Holy shit, you're Chandler Smith." He's like, "Yeah, I wanted to meet you." I'm like, "Are you sure you got the right guy? Like, what are you coming to meet me for?" And we got a photo together. And we had him on the podcast once. Like he's just really funny, really kind, sweet, thoughtful, and I could go on and on. Like everybody that talks about him just raves about the dude. So I'm bummed I won't get to see him compete again. I'm excited for him. 6th in the world is quite an accomplishment, to say the least. His highest finish ever. So would not surprise me to see him be champion someday. So
Yeah, I'm rooting for him for sure.
yeah, he certainly, like, he just gets better every year. Like, people forget he's only really been doing this a couple of seasons, or been, kind of in the conversation. He's still young. He's 27, so.
Yeah. And he's also in the PFA, so I've worked with him a little bit, and we got to spend time together in Colorado for the CrossFit Summit. And I forgot, he's so good that you forget that he just qualified out of the blue out of Rogue Invitational last year.
Yeah.
His first games, his rookie season, he just up and qualified at Rogue. That was kind of his first competition, and then he just ended up at the games. And we talk about him as if he's this, aged old veteran in the sport, because it's just he's that good. He just seems like he's been around for forever. So I think there's a huge potential there, and I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him flourish, for lack of a better word, in coming seasons.
Well, I think people forget he's active military. It's not like he doesn't have a day
Yes,
job. Now granted, he's on the
he
fitness team,
definitely
so
does.
he gets to work out, but it's still like military life's not like just working out for a living. Like that's a hard existence. So again,
They keep him
congratulations to
busy.
him. Yeah,
They
definitely.
keep him busy. So
Well, let's wrap up with a couple of takeaways. I'll give you a couple of mine. I'd love to hear a few of yours. On the men's side, apparently they're all squatting 400 now. That was a big takeaway. I mean, basically 15 of the 30 men hit 400, almost 400 or more. You had 14 or more that did go over 400, which is really amazing. And I don't think CrossFit's always been known for its technical strength. Like you start comparing it to other strength sports, while we have a lot of really strong people, like people wouldn't have thought, okay, well, they're going to do heavy front squats. Well, these guys were killing it and damn near 500 pounds by the winter. Um,
Yeah.
and then, you look at some of the other stuff, like the rowing times are really amazing. And I thought, the handstand hold was a really unique thing to see, like kind of the well-roundedness of all these athletes. While it wasn't a shocking takeaway, it's really good to see how they're really improving. And not to blow up Matt's head too much, but like this guy's that, four-time defending champion, about to be the fifth probably. And he's clearly working on handstand holds, like you just don't like, I don't know. As an average CrossFitter, I just don't think that way. I think we all, as everyday CrossFitters, and you're not every day, but I am. And we go into the gym and we do the workouts, and we think about working on weaknesses, but it's so much bigger. And he's out there getting technical, fixing the little things in his row so he can still finish top 10, and fixing the little things in handstand so he can, come in second. Like it's really impressive to me to see that level of commitment to his craft. And then on the women's side, again, this wasn't a surprising takeaway, but they reaffirmed to me how competitive that field is. The men were competitive, but the women, you're seeing a lot of the similar names and some of the newer ones, like Haley as an example, coming up. It's just really good to see how close they all are. It's just such a competitive and fun field to watch. Like, truthfully, I look more forward to watching them compete in Aromas than the men. Not that I don't love watching the men, but there's so many great stories on the women's side that I think it's just going to be an absolute blast to watch them throw down there.
It absolutely is. The women's field has always, for me, because I'm in the women's field, has always been a little bit more interesting to me, but it's fascinating to watch them compete against each other because it really just feels like it's up for grabs. Tia is dominant, and I'm for sure not betting against her this year. I think she'll end up winning. Of course, I don't know the programming for what's coming up in Aromas, but she's just so well-rounded, so technical. I can't see it, being taken from her. And she's developed a massive, massive points lead this weekend, which is my understanding they're taking into the weekend at the ranch. Although something interesting that might come up is the points at the ranch. What I've heard is that they are going on a 100-point scale, but scaled to 5 people. So it'll be 100, 75, 50, 25, 0. So that is a huge, huge change. It benefits you a lot to win, and it hurts you a lot to get second, third, or fourth. Obviously, you get nothing for being fifth. So that will keep things interesting. I think there's an opportunity. Tia had 611 points at the end of this weekend. Brooke was at 580, but you can easily make that up in an event or two. So it will be interesting to see, and the women's field, like we saw today, just keeps surprising us. There's movement all over the place. You think you figured it out, and then something else happens. So it'll be fascinating to watch them compete side by side and get that in-person element as well.
Yeah, agreed. I think my only other takeaway from the weekend, and then we can wrap it up, was Dave's programming was stellar. Again, like he just does such a good job. I had a laughter moment. I shot Nikki a text earlier. Did you see her interview with Dave at all? Did you watch it?
I didn't. No, I missed it.
So she says to him, she's like, "So Dave, can you give us a preview to the type of programming you're going to have in Aromas?" And he goes, "No." Just like that. She goes, "Oh, okay then." I'm like, that's awesome. It's so typical Dave. Like he's just not going to tip his hand at all. And I'm sure whatever he has in store for them is going to be super creative and fun. I thought this weekend was a really nice mix of traditional CrossFit spun with expanding it to their ever increasing fitness, which was really cool to see. And then threw in a couple of wrinkles with making them do the 1,000-meter row as an example in the handstand hold. I thought was a nice change. Throwing in a new rope, like some of the stuff was really fun. So good job by Dave.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it was well-rounded. It really pulled out the people I think who deserve to be in the top 5 in Aromas. And like you said, just it tested all the different elements. I know there was a little bit of maybe concern about the time domains. There were a lot of short events. But Annie was right in there Tia's fastest time is 8-ish minutes, and then ranging up towards 9 or 10, which fell right in the middle. And then you had the longer Nasty Nancy. So yeah, I think the programming is really great, and I can't wait to see what he comes up with at the ranch, because it'll all catch us by surprise. And it was nice that at this stage we got a reminder of like you said, the classic CrossFit girl workouts, the original girls, but with a twist to make it just a little bit harder for the elite athletes.
Yeah, it was fun. So when are you doing the workouts? You going to start them next week?
TBD. Gotta heal this back thing up, and then I'm definitely gonna plan either a weekend to just try them, or just put them into training every once in a while. I don't know that I want to commit a whole weekend and then whatever carnage thereafter. But I think I'm going to sprinkle some into my normal training, because they are fun. I think they are worthy of being new benchmarks. So I want to give them a shot and set a baseline score and try them again in the
So
future.
I've always said I'm as strong as a games woman. Let's both pick a weekend and do them, and we'll have you back on the show. I'll scale to the women's weights. I'll do the women's RX, which for the record, my handstand hold's going to be like 2 seconds. So I'm going to finish second in that one.
Perfect.
We'll have you
I think
back
it's
on,
perfect.
Nikki, and we'll compare scores. It'll be a fun show.
There we go. I like this.
All right, we'll do that. You'll destroy
You're
me.
just poking my competitive nature.
You're not very competitive then, because you're going to go 7 for 7. Although I don't know, I feel okay about my chances on the row. I'm a pretty good rower, so we'll see.
You might have me on the row. You might have me on the row. I'm 5'5".
God, see, now you're going to beat me by like 20 seconds, and I'm going to feel like a jerk. Oh, well, we're doing it. We're doing this. We'll pick a date, and we'll let everybody know, and we'll have you back on. All right.
I love this. I love this.
It is done.
The date.
We should make Nikki do it too, just for shits and giggles.
Yeah, that'll be great. It'll be like a make pods great again, little mini family throwdown. Games 2020 style.
Perfect.
And we can all complain about our rhabdo from GHD 3 days later.
Oh my God, I don't even want to think about it.
Start training now.
Well, thank you for subbing for Nikki. I know she appreciates it. I certainly do. I know the listeners do as well. So thanks for your time. We'll have you back on very soon. And for everyone listening, thanks for joining us. And we'll catch up with you next week.